If you've ever found yourself second-guessing that inner voice that seems to know what's right for you, if you've ever ignored that subtle feeling in your stomach that warns you about a person or situation, only to later regret not listening to yourself, then you're experiencing one of trauma's most insidious effects on our lives. The reason trauma makes you ignore your gut instinct isn't just a psychological curiosity. It's a survival mechanism gone wrong, and understanding this connection can fundamentally change how you relate to yourself and make decisions. Based on the groundbreaking work of Dr. Gabor Maté, we know that trauma doesn't just affect our minds. It rewires our entire nervous system, including our ability to trust the wisdom our bodies naturally provide us. When we talk about gut instinct, we're referring to something that's deeply rooted in our biology. Your gut contains what scientists call the enteric nervous system, often referred to as the second brain, because it contains more nerve cells than your spinal cord. This network of neurons is constantly processing information about your environment and sending signals to your brain about safety, danger, and everything in between. It's the system that makes your stomach drop when something feels wrong, or gives you that warm feeling when you're around someone trustworthy. This isn't mystical thinking. This is hard science about how your body communicates with your mind through sensations, feelings, and intuitive knowing. But here's where trauma enters the picture and changes everything. When we experience trauma, especially in childhood, our nervous system learns to prioritize external threats over internal wisdom. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a child trying to listen to your favorite song on the radio, but there's constant static and interference. Eventually, you learn to tune out the music altogether because the static is so overwhelming. Trauma creates that static in our internal communication system. We become so focused on scanning for external danger, on reading other people's moods and reactions to ensure our survival, that we lose the ability to hear our own inner voice. The process begins with what Gabor Maté describes as the fundamental trauma of disconnection from self. When children are raised in environments where their natural responses, feelings, or instincts are consistently invalidated, punished, or ignored, they learn that their internal compass isn't trustworthy. If a child feels uncomfortable around a family member but is told they're being silly or ungrateful, if they express a need that's met with anger or dismissal, if they show authentic emotions that are shamed or criticized, they learn to distrust their own perceptions. Over time, this creates a profound split between what they feel inside and what they believe they should feel or do. This disconnection from gut instinct serves a purpose in traumatic environments. It's actually adaptive. When your survival depends on pleasing unpredictable caregivers, when expressing your true feelings might result in abandonment or punishment, when your environment is chaotic and unsafe, learning to ignore your internal signals and focus entirely on external cues becomes a survival strategy. You become hypervigilant to other people's emotions, needs, and expectations because that's where safety lies. Your gut might be telling you that something is wrong, but your traumatized nervous system has learned that listening to that voice is dangerous. The tragedy is that this survival mechanism, which may have protected you as a child, becomes a prison as an adult. You find yourself in relationships that don't feel right, but you can't explain why. You take jobs that drain your soul but seem logical on paper. You make decisions based on what you think you should do rather than what feels authentic to you. You might even find yourself attracted to people or situations that recreate familiar patterns of dysfunction because they feel normal to your traumatized system, even though your gut is screaming warnings that you've learned to ignore. What makes this even more complex is that trauma often comes with a side effect that Gabor Maté calls toxic shame, the belief that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. When you carry this shame, you don't just ignore your gut instinct, you actively distrust it. You think to yourself, I can't trust my judgment because I'm broken, I'm too sensitive, I'm not smart enough, I always get it wrong. This shame reinforces the disconnection from your inner wisdom and keeps you trapped in cycles of self-doubt and external validation seeking. Let me paint a picture of how this looks in real life. Sarah, a woman in her 30s, repeatedly finds herself in relationships with emotionally unavailable partners, Her gut instinct tells her early on that these men aren't capable of the intimacy she craves. But she ignores these feelings. Instead, she focuses on their potential, their charm during good moments, or the logical reasons why the relationship should work. She's been conditioned by childhood trauma to believe that her needs don't matter and that love means sacrificing her own comfort for others. Her gut instinct, which would guide her toward healthier connections, has been silenced by years of learning that her feelings weren't valid or important. The suppression of gut instinct also shows up in our relationship with our own bodies and health. Trauma survivors often struggle to recognize hunger, fatigue, pain, or other bodily signals because they've learned to override their physical needs. They might push through exhaustion, ignore warning signs of illness, or struggle with eating disorders because the connection between mind and body has been severed. The body is constantly sending messages about what it needs, but the traumatized mind has learned not to listen. Understanding this connection between trauma and gut instinct helps explain why so many trauma survivors struggle with decision-making. When you can't access your internal compass, every choice becomes an intellectual exercise rather than an embodied knowing. You make pro and con lists, seek endless advice from others, research every possible angle, but you still feel lost and uncertain. This isn't because you lack intelligence or wisdom. It's because you've been disconnected from the part of yourself that naturally knows what's right for you. The good news is that this connection can be restored, but it requires patience, compassion, and often professional support. The first step is simply acknowledging that your gut instinct exists and that it's been suppressed, not destroyed. Think of it like a muscle that hasn't been used in a long time. It's still there, but it needs gentle rehabilitation. This might start with paying attention to small bodily sensations, noticing when you feel tense or relaxed, hungry or satisfied, energized or drained. These physical sensations are the language your gut instinct uses to communicate with you. Now, I want to pause here and ask you something important, and I really hope you'll take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever noticed times in your life when you had a strong feeling about something? Maybe about a person, a job opportunity, or a major decision, but you talked yourself out of listening to that feeling? What happened when you ignored that inner voice? I'm genuinely curious about your experiences because these stories help us all understand how universal this struggle is. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and engage with these ideas. I know this isn't always easy material to sit with, but your willingness to explore these concepts shows incredible courage and self-awareness. Your journey toward healing and reconnection with yourself matters, and I'm honored to be part of that process with you. Continuing with our exploration, it's important to understand that reconnecting with your gut instinct isn't about making impulsive decisions or throwing logic out the window. Instead, it's about integrating your intuitive wisdom with your rational mind to make more aligned, authentic choices. Gabor Maté often speaks about the importance of both emotional intelligence and cognitive processing working together. Your gut instinct provides valuable information about what serves your well-being and authentic self, while your rational mind helps you navigate the practical aspects of implementing those insights. One of the most profound realizations in this healing journey is understanding that your gut instinct is inherently wise and protective. It's not trying to lead you astray or make your life difficult, quite the opposite. Your intuitive knowing is always oriented toward your highest good, your authentic self-expression, and your genuine well-being. When it warns you about a person or situation, it's not being paranoid or difficult. It's picking up on subtle cues that your conscious mind might miss. When it draws you towards certain opportunities or relationships, it's recognizing alignment with your true nature and values. The process of rebuilding trust in your gut instinct often involves grieving the ways you've been disconnected from yourself. There may be sadness about decisions you made that didn't serve you, anger about the circumstances that taught you to distrust yourself, or fear about what it might mean to really listen to your inner voice. All of these feelings are valid and important parts of the healing process. Healing isn't just about acquiring new skills. It's also about processing the pain of having been separated from your own wisdom for so long. Practically speaking, rebuilding this connection often starts with creating safety in your nervous system. When you're constantly in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, it's nearly impossible to access subtle internal cues. This is why trauma-informed healing approaches often begin with nervous system regulation, teaching your body that it's safe to slow down, tune in, and listen. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, gentle movement, or time in nature can help shift your nervous system into a state where internal awareness becomes possible. It's also crucial to understand that your gut instinct speaks through your body, not just your mind. You might notice a tightening in your chest when something doesn't feel right, a sense of expansion and lightness when you're moving in the right direction, or a feeling of groundedness when you're making an aligned choice. These physical sensations are your intuitive guidance system in action. Learning to recognize and trust these bodily signals is like learning a new language, the language of your own inner wisdom. Another important aspect of this healing is learning to distinguish between the voice of trauma and the voice of intuition. Trauma often speaks in absolute terms, creating urgency, fear, and reactivity. It might say things like, "You have to do this or something terrible will happen," or "You can never trust anyone," or "You're not worthy of good things." Your gut instinct, on the other hand, tends to be more gentle, grounded, and oriented toward growth and authenticity. It might whisper, "This doesn't feel right for you," or "Pay attention to how this person makes you feel," or "You deserve better than this." The healing journey also involves learning to set boundaries based on your internal guidance rather than external expectations. When you're connected to your gut instinct, you naturally know when to say yes and when to say no. You can feel in your body whether something aligns with your values and well-being or whether it demands too much of your energy and authenticity. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being honest about what you can genuinely offer from a place of wholeness rather than depletion or obligation. Speaking of boundaries, you know what would really help me out here? If this content is resonating with you, if you're finding value in these insights about trauma and gut instinct, could you give this video a thumbs up? I know it sounds silly, but just like your gut instinct knows what's good for you, the YouTube algorithm needs to know what's good for viewers, and your like helps this message reach people who might really need to hear it. Plus, it tells me that I'm on the right track with this content, which honestly helps my own gut instinct about what to share with you all. One of the most beautiful aspects of reconnecting with your gut instinct is that it often leads to what Gabor Maté calls authentic self-expression. When you're no longer filtering everything through trauma responses and external expectations, your true personality, creativity, and gifts can emerge. You might find yourself drawn to activities, relationships, or career paths that you never considered before but that feel deeply right. This isn't about dramatic life changes necessarily. Sometimes it's about subtle shifts in how you show up in the world, what you prioritize, and how you make daily decisions. The relationship between trauma and gut instinct also illuminates why healing is often a community process rather than a purely individual one. When we've learned to distrust our internal guidance, we need safe relationships where our perceptions and feelings are validated and respected. We need people who can mirror back our worth and wisdom when we can't see it ourselves. This might be a skilled therapist, a supportive friend, a healing community, or even a spiritual practice that helps us reconnect with our innate wisdom and value. It's important to acknowledge that this healing process isn't linear or quick. There will be times when you feel deeply connected to your inner wisdom and times when that connection feels lost again. This is normal and doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Healing happens in layers, and each time you return to practices that support your connection with yourself, you're deepening and strengthening that relationship. Be patient with yourself and remember that learning to trust your gut instinct after trauma is an act of tremendous courage and self-love. As we near the end of our time together, I want to reflect on something profound about this whole process. When trauma makes you ignore your gut instinct, it's not just about losing access to internal guidance. It's about losing access to your authentic self. Your gut instinct is the voice of your true nature, your deepest values, your soul's compass pointing toward what will truly serve your growth and happiness. Reconnecting with this voice isn't just about making better decisions. It's about reclaiming your rightful place as the author of your own life story. The journey from trauma-induced disconnection to intuitive wisdom is ultimately a journey home to yourself. It's about learning that you can trust yourself, that your feelings and perceptions matter, that your needs are valid, and that you have everything within you to navigate life's challenges with grace and authenticity. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or that you'll never face difficulties, but it means you'll face them from a place of inner knowing and self-compassion rather than self-doubt and disconnection. Recovery of gut instinct is also deeply tied to the recovery of hope. When you can feel in your body that certain people, opportunities, or experiences are good for you, when you can sense possibility and potential rather than just danger and limitation, you reconnect with a sense of agency and optimism about your future. You begin to trust that good things are possible for you and that you have the wisdom to recognize and choose them when they appear. I hope that as you've listened to this exploration of trauma and gut instinct, you've felt some recognition, some validation, and perhaps some hope about your own journey. Remember that acknowledging the ways trauma has affected your relationship with yourself isn't about blame or wallowing in the past. It's about understanding so that you can heal, grow, and reclaim the fullness of who you are. Your gut instinct is still there, waiting patiently for you to remember how to listen, trust, and follow its gentle guidance toward a life that truly feels like home. If this content has touched something in you, if it's helped you understand your own experiences a little better, I'd love it if you could hit that like button. And if you feel moved to share your own insights or experiences about reconnecting with your inner wisdom, please leave a comment below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you're interested in exploring more content about trauma, healing, and authentic living, check out the next video that should be appearing on your screen. And if this kind of deep, compassionate exploration of human psychology resonates with you, consider subscribing to Not What It Seems. Thank you for being here, for doing this important work of healing and growth, and for trusting me with your time and attention. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember, your inner wisdom is always available to guide you home to yourself.